So I am going to be making some cottage cheese, and I want to reserve some of the cream from this raw milk for stirring in afterward. So I'm just going to scoop a little bit out first before I pour it in so that I can stir it back in afterward and not just curdle all of the cream. I want to have some of this cream stir back in. A little bit more. I'd say that's about half a cup or so. I'll just set it over here. And then I'm going to pour in this milk, which is somewhat reduced fat now, but still pretty much whole. That's half a gallon. And then I have, this is a skim milk over here because I already took the cream off of it. It's not quite half a gallon. We've been drinking out of it, but it's from last week, so I'm going to pour it in here. So this is going to make not quite a gallon, so I will use not quite a gallon's worth of vinegar when I am doing this. We're going to turn it on medium heat. We're going to cover it, and the recipe says to heat it to 190. And I think that's the reason that in the past I have had a harder time getting it to become cottage cheese and not mozzarella, because I was just heating to 120 like I do with mozzarella. And this new recipe says heat to 190, so I'll get my thermometer out and heat it up to 190. While I'm waiting for my pot to heat up for cottage cheese, I'm going to start making some butter. I have some cream. I've got almost a quart. This part down here is actually milk, but most of it's cream, and then most of this pint is also cream. And I'm just going to pour it into my blender. We got a Vitamix like 12 years ago, and it's been awesome. I love it. I did not anticipate using it so heavily back then, but I sure do. So I don't want to leave any cream in here. I'm just going to put a lid on and kind of give it a gentle shake here and get as much cream off the sides as I can. Same with this one. It is cold. Some people say that you should make butter with room temp cream. Some people say you should use cold cream. I've actually had better luck with cold cream, but I think all cream is kind of temperamental, especially when it's raw, not pasteurized and everything else like that. Alright, then I'm just going to stick the lid on. My Vitamix has like from 0 to a bajillion, but 10. 10 is something I never ever use. I usually turn it on about a 2. And that's usually good. So let's just see how fast that runs here. So it can take several minutes up to half an hour to actually make this into butter. But I'm just grateful I don't have to churn it. So just let it go. And then once it starts to hear a little more sloshy, like solid sloshing in liquid, I'm going to turn it down just a little bit to like 1.5, so that it can more slowly kind of compact into butter. My gallon of milk has reached 190 degrees, and so I'm adding the vinegar. For a full gallon, it would have been 3/4 cup of vinegar. Since I had a little less than a gallon, we used a little less than 3/4 of a cup, probably 2/3 of a cup. Quick stir, and then we're popping the lid on and leaving it off the heat for half an hour. So I've poured my butter mixture, which contains the butter and the buttermilk, in through a sieve, and before I kind of press it, I'm actually going to pour that buttermilk into the jar that I had the cream in, just so that I can save it for something else. This is not my favorite measuring cup because it always does this weird pour thing, but my other one was busy, so I'm just going to take something like wooden spoon, rubber spatula, whatever you've got. I'm going to press more of that milk out. And once you've got all the milk that you care to save out of that, because not everybody feels like they need to save that. Once you've got all that milk out that you want to save, then you are going to rinse your butter in cold water so it doesn't melt. Let's reserve that. So I'm actually just going to plop this in here very delicately because obviously that's how I do everything. And then I'm going to rinse it with some cold water until the liquid around it is fairly clear and doesn't have a whole lot of milk look to it, because that's going to help keep our butter fresher longer. Making some yogurt. I'm going to be using a gallon of milk, so got my 2 half-gallon containers here. I'm also going to be using the buttermilk that I made from the butter, and this is not a fermented buttermilk, so it's not a tangy buttermilk. It tastes pretty much just like a regular milk, but it has the fats removed, so it's like a reduced fat buttermilk. And we're going to pour our whole milk in the crock pot that is slowly scooting away from me. I made it, guys. Look at that. It's easier with 2 hands, but Rosie wanted to help today. So 2 gallons in there, plus my quart of buttermilk. And I'm going to turn it on low. Still going to find the lid for this. It's down in the cabinet below me, but I'm going to cover it up, cook it on low for 2 hours, and then I'm going to need to turn it off for 2 hours. So I'm about to check my cottage cheese, and I'll turn the camera around so that you can see what I see as I see it. I'm going to take my lid off here, and let's see. I'm wondering if this just kind of turned itself into mozzarella. I don't know. Not exactly mozzarella-ish. It's a little bit more clumpy, which I like. I'm going to gently stir it up before I scoop it out to get the rest of the way out. I feel like if I'm going to clump it up a little bit, it'll help it to be more clumpy like cottage cheese is. That's what I think. I don't know. Could be wrong. Guess we'll find out. I'm just going to set this up to drain here. Let's see what we get. So I had my curds here, and I went ahead and I used a whisk to kind of chop them up some. And I already added a little bit of salt and some of the cream, and I'm going to add a little bit more cream because I think that it's going to make it look more like the stuff that my kids are used to, especially my girls. They like cottage cheese. And I'm going to sneak it into a container that says that it's from the store because they're only 5 and 3. So let's give this a little taste test. Okay, so I'm going to just give it a little taste test. It's not cold yet. So, you know, warm cottage cheese might be a little bit weird, but it's pretty good. I like it a lot. I bet cold it'll be even better. And if I add even a little bit more cream, I think it'll be just like store-bought. So yeah, cottage cheese. The trick was heating it up to 190 instead of 120. Who knew? So now I'm making some mozzarella and some caramel out of the whey from when I made the cottage cheese. So the whey is reducing by half. I need about a quart of whey. Once it's reduced, it was about 2.5 quarts of whey. Need it to get to 1 quart. And I'm heating up my skimmed milk because it does make better mozzarella if it's skim instead of whole. And I have it heated up to 120. So I'm just going to turn off the heat, take that out, and my spatula here. Since I've got half a gallon of milk in here, I'm using half a cup of white vinegar. And here's the difference between the cottage cheese and mozzarella. I'm going to go ahead and stir this, and I'm going to just keep stirring it slowly to let the vinegar get to all the different parts of the milk. So I'm just going to keep stirring it because it's going to start coagulating on my spoon, my wooden spatula. I'll give you a better view here in just a sec. So you can see the mozzarella is coagulating and forming more of a curd here. So what I do is I just keep stirring it. Some people have you take it out, drain it, salt it, or salt the whey, put it back in, take it out, put it in, take it out. I just keep stirring it here. Kind of pulling it out and letting it stretch some. Until I like the consistency, and then I'll remove it to a bowl. Okay, so I'm going to bring my mozzarella over to this bowl. It's the same bowl I've been using for the other dairy. Make sure I get all of the pieces in here. Then while it's still nice and warm, press it out. I'm going to go ahead and pour this back into that whey real quick. And then get my mozzarella out. I don't actually usually use one of these. I usually just plop it in and use my hands. But I figured it might be good to show somebody who's concerned about just using their hands how to do it. I'll clean that up in a little bit. So now I've got tough as nails hands. This is still pretty warm. Gonna massage it. Squeeze some of this liquid out. knock over the camera. Done. And now I can kind of start to stretch it. And this is when I like to add the salt. So just like everything else, it's just season it with your heart. There you go. And then we'll massage that salt in. Kind of just folding it up over and over. Stretch, stretch, stretch. And form it into whatever shape you like. If that's a ball, if that's more of a log, if it's something that you can slice, whatever you like. So then I'm going to set this in the fridge to cool, but first I'm going to take a little bite because I love this fresh mozzarella. Plus it helps me to know I got the salt just right. Alright, get that in the fridge. Got my whey reduced in half, and now I'm going to be adding 2 cups of sugar. And we're basically just going to cook it down and stir it until it turns into a nice thick caramel. The recipe says it'll take about an hour. So we'll go ahead and stir that up. After it's thick, you add a little bit of butter and optionally a little bit of salt. My butter has salt in it, so I'll skip the salt. And it'll be like a soft caramel. It's nighttime, and I don't want to wake everybody up, but I gotta try some of the caramel. So Hold on, honey. I cut all the caramel into squares and rolled it in cocoa powder to help it not stick together. And I found an old candy container from some chocolates I received before, and I knew I saved it for a reason. The caramels fit perfectly in there. So as you saw, my yogurt didn't set up, and sometimes that just happens. So I actually restarted it from that state. I warmed it back up for 2.5 hours, turned it off, and then at 2.5 hours later, my intention was to come and add more starter culture, which is another cup of yogurt, and just allow it to incubate the next 8 to 12 hours that way and turn it into yogurt. But to my surprise, when I came back, the whey had separated from the curd and it was yogurt-like, but not completely right. So I strained it through with a cheesecloth, and yes, tell her I will be there in just a minute. And now I have it strained out, and it's just a little bit curdy. So it tastes like yogurt, looks almost like yogurt. I'm just going to blitz it in my blender for a minute. And now it's nice and smooth. Let's see if I can get the lighting to work for me. Nice and smooth. Ready for me to put into containers for yogurt. Also works great for sour cream. And I had that whey that I had left over. I decided to just kind of experiment with it. So what I'm doing with that whey is I had heated that up on high, added a little bit of vinegar, and I'm working on getting some kind of a ricotta cheese out of it. We'll see if it really works out, but I'll show you what I've got so far. So, I'll have to tip this down. So it's kind of a caramelized look, and it looks a lot more wet right now, but it'll be kind of like a ricotta cheese. I'm sure you can use it in something. Actually tastes a lot like sour cream. So I can see this being something for taco day. Alright, I'm going to get this yogurt into some jars. So here it is, end of the next day, and I've still got some milk in my fridge for drinking, but I've got, see if we can get it to adjust. There we go. So I've got milk for drinking, I've got 4 pints of yogurt, almost a pound of butter, I used some since yesterday, mozzarella cheese, almost a quart of cottage cheese, some mystery dip. I think it'd be good on chips with salsa. And caramels that are dusted in cocoa and some more in here. So I think it was a very good and productive dairy couple of days, even though a couple of things didn't go quite to plan. And I'm looking forward to making some vanilla custard, and sometime I'm going to need to try some ice cream. So thanks for coming along and checking out my dairy processing. We gotta go get the little one now. God bless. Bye.